Hey everyone, welcome to The Grind. Today we have David joining us and
Hello.
we are going to be Hello. We are going to be talking about conflict. Yes. Nice. Well, basically, today's theme is talking about, we're looking at James chapter 4 and the idea of how there's a war within us and how James says that we can win, and humility is key in this thing. And I know we've been seeing a lot about wars on the news and everything, but sometimes there's also a war within us that we need to also overcome. So anyways, icebreaker question is this: what's something that you constantly go back and forth about in your head, even if it's small?
For me, a lot of things, to be honest. Even with texts and small things like promising someone that you're gonna meet up with them and then not turning up. That's not a small thing, but that's not a small thing.
That's a big thing.
But for example, if you're texting someone you don't know very well, you tend to overthink a lot of the words you might use, or you might overthink the emoji a lot.
Emoji stuff counts.
Oh yeah, true. Does this emoji communicate
is it
this or
is
that?
it appropriate to use an emoji?
Oh man,
or which emoji you should use. That would just
exactly.
completely change the tone of the message.
Exactly.
Or do you add a full stop at the end of the sentence? Or because if you answer with K full stop, that's probably the most jabby thing that you can do.
I think it's a generational thing too as well. I think our generation, we don't put full stops.
No. When my dad puts K
messages.
full stop, I'm like, what did I do wrong, Dad?
I will repent, but what do I have to repent about?
Yeah, exactly.
I think for me it's very simple. That I think one of the things that most second guess myself is do I try something new or do I just go for a comfort pick? The amount of times how much time we wasted, we have a lunch group, and so we spend so much time so what do we want to eat?
Yeah.
It just goes in a circle. We're already leaving the office and we're all right, which direction do we go? What do we want to eat?
Because the choices in North Point are subpar sometimes.
I think it's having to eat every day, you know what I mean? You have to make that decision every single day, and anywhere you are in Hong Kong, it's those options. You have to get creative with it, you know? Yeah.
And same with movies. My to watch list, both movies and TV shows, is so long. But how many times I resort to watching Top Gun or Lord of the Rings?
Probably could start to quote word for word now. I think for some would be it's this meal protein forward. That's definitely something. I was if I order this, it's not enough protein. If I order this, is what I want to eat. So I'm just but I need more protein in my life. And I was so that's something that I definitely go back and forth. Also do I post this story or do I put this on my story? Do I not post it on my story on Insta? Because who's watching my story? What would they think? All these things, right? And
that's
then
real.
and in all seriousness, maybe if I talk about spiritual disciplines, did I pray enough, or do I set aside time did God hear my prayers? I think it's just did I say the right thing? Sometimes there's also that back and forth as well when it comes to things like that. So I think every day we definitely have that back and forth, and one might feel it's a war of decision sometimes, or
a lot of overthinking, right?
Yeah.
A lot of overthinking.
Yeah, sometimes we do overthink the things that we don't need to overthink. Fight is not necessarily external, it's internal. It starts within us. So we're going to take a look at James chapter 4, verses 1-3. What causes quarrels? What causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. So, how do these apply to your own life?
That's so savage. I love it. The line, you desire and do not have, so you murder, is so beyond passive aggressive at this point.
I don't know. There's a lot of things I want I don't have, but I think if I went down the murdering path, I think I would be behind bars right about now.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think guilty as charged. Except for the murder one.
Yeah. We do not murder. We do not condone murder. Do not murder, guys.
No guns, no killing.
I think my reaction when I read this is the surprise Pikachu face.
Oh.
It's I'm surprised, but I told you, like, what do you expect? when you pursue the worldly things, I think there's lots of times I had like worldly goals, and so the rewards I reaped were like temporarily worldly stuff, and they're not satisfying at all. So that's why I say the surprise Pikachu feels like, what do you expect?
True.
Yeah.
Like the verse, you ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend on your passions. Yeah, so yeah, you do not have because you do not ask, but then I do ask, and then you do not receive because you ask wrongly and spend on your passions. So I'm like, am I asking with the wrong motives? Like, I'm pretty sure, like, you know, and so it's just like checking my heart all the time, and then also like second guessing myself, like, but is this not your will? Can I not ask for like
that you do
like if I'm not receiving it, is this wrong? So I think there's that thought process. Like, yeah.
It's just really funny, like the whole thing, the whole passage of James chapter 4 verses 1 to verse 3 or 4. It's like we're just a bunch of kids that wants a bit of pocket money to get whatever food we want, and like to spend it on our hobbies and passions, but then we don't want the right things, and we also ask for the wrong things as well. But it's so true. We really are like that. Like as a guy, especially, like you get into different hobbies and different sports, and over those months, you just obsess about one thing, and God really sees our heart that we're just basic.
Yeah.
You know.
Like.
Yeah, basic.
Yeah, basic. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, what Pastor had talked about was, let's be real, like when we take a photo, like the first person we look for is ourselves, which
For
is
sure.
100% true, because I'm just like, oh, there we go. Especially when my hair is like super bright, it's like, boom.
That's
like,
a bad pick. Nice.
Can really spot me, because I think out of everyone that I know right now, I have the brightest hair, I think.
But
I believe
you stand out.
Exactly. So naturally my eyes are like me, but it all boils down to also being self-centered as well. I think that's the first and foremost, like we're, I guess, naturally self-centered, and that's like the start of it all. And so Pastor talks about how a self-centered Christian only wants God when it's convenient. So how can we tell when our desire for pleasure or comfort has taken the driver's seat in our life?
Well, I think the obvious answer is that whatever drives us away from God, right? I remember like every alpha, they always use this quote, the Jim Carrey quote, where it said like,
the actor Jim Carrey said this. He said, I think everyone should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see it's not the answer.
it's not what you want.
Yeah, I remember that
Right.
quote.
So I think like that, you know, as much as how nice worldly stuff can be for the time being, right? Like satisfying your own selfish personal desires, it's nice at the moment, but then like, let's be honest, how long term is this like joy or peace gonna last, right? So I think, like the Samaritan woman, like that's what Jesus said, like, if you drink my water, you'll be like, you will thirst no more. Was it? Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the clear difference. And then she wanted that. She's like, oh, I don't want to walk to the well to get water anymore. So I think it's that manner of like, when should we like drop these selfish desires and pursue God's like eternal, everlasting provision. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, I think there's something very different about the material world versus the spiritual world. With the material, whether it's achievement or just possessions and status in life, it is an endless race, right? You get to one checkpoint and then very quickly that's not enough, and you're chasing the next thing. And the way our world operates, it's always, you're only as good as your last something, right?
Yeah.
Your last achievement. If you're a musician, your last album. If you're an artist, your last painting. They always look at that. And even for the corporate world, maybe it's like your last project or your last sales or something like that. Whereas the spiritual world operates so differently. I feel like even when you pray, the sense of peace you get from that is so lasting.
Yeah.
And it is like a realization that whether I get this or I get that thing, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, which sounds really weird, but you get taken out of the rat race, you know. If it's you're truly free from the matrix, I would say, you know. Yeah.
So for me, I think when it, I can tell that pleasure is comforts taking the driver's seat when I have, you know, that sense of entitlement, like, oh, I deserve this. I've done this and this and this. Therefore, I should receive that. And I don't know whether you guys have been in that position before.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's really gross when I meet entitled people, I'm like, you guys are gross.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I know I've become that person too. So I'm like,
I think the spirit of entitlement is you really make everything about yourself.
Yeah.
That's why it's so like ungodly, you could say. Like, even if you get a promotion, let's say, the amount of collaboration, the amount of other people's effort that went into you doing such a good job just gets swept under the rug.
yeah.
There's so many nuances to this, like chasing pleasure and chasing comfort. I think it also makes you weaker as a person, because imagine if you're living a super lavish lifestyle, like in Hong Kong, let's say, and you're used to aircon every single day.
Finally accepted that air conditioning is privilege and not a right.
Yeah.
So stepping out in the heat for 1 minute, it's already torture
It like
for
really
you.
breaks you.
Your tolerance for things in life becomes more and more narrow. So you become more and more isolated as a person, and less relatable to other people as well. Whereas as a Christian, we want to be the opposite, right?
Yeah.
You want to relate to as many people as possible and not create walls.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Maybe a bit of a hot take. Maybe entitlement isn't all bad. I think.
Oh yeah, or
I
tell
would
me
like
more.
to say that maybe entitlement is like what I'd call as a virtue, that like too much of it is bad and too little of it is also bad. I think there's like a slight sweet spot, because I think the way I also see entitlement, that like what your argument is definitely obvious and very like common in society.
Yeah.
But I think like on the other end of the spectrum, I feel it's some people who they don't hold on to what they're entitled, and they underball themselves like significantly. Like, let's say like okay, for example, like I think the most common one I always say is like, you're a prince in God's kingdom,
Right.
so act like a prince. Don't like, just because your physical life is very impoverished doesn't mean your spiritual life has to be in poverty as well.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's true.
I think like to some extent it's like being firm with your identity and knowing what you deserve in that identity. I feel.
Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I guess it depends on how you look at that term, right? I think the word entitled is just such a negative term that I can't really put a positive spin to it. But I get what you're saying, because as a child of God, you are quote unquote entitled to the access to His kingdom, to His presence, to all His resources. But we sometimes don't step into that because we're thinking like, oh, we must do all these works. But I think that's just more like understanding and embracing your identity and knowing that this is your inheritance.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the word entitlement is just more of like believing oneself to be inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. I don't think I deserve anything. It's only by God's grace that I have access to this. So which is why I would be uncomfortable to use the word I'm entitled to access God's kingdom and His resources, because I don't deserve it in the first place. It's only by His grace.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would put it. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily
Maybe a difference in words, right?
yeah, difference of words.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I think just the word entitled just is never usually a good connotation to it. And yeah, because then you usually, again, you associate it with it being self-centeredness. And then we know that like a self-centered Christian only wants God when it's convenient. And also self-centeredness leads to prayerlessness, because it's all about like, oh, this is what I need, so I don't need to ask for it, right? You know, this is what I'm entitled to, and you know, it's all about me, so I need this. So you don't necessarily start praying. So yeah, prayerlessness, which is what Pastor I said, self-centeredness, prayerlessness. So yeah, when we stop seeking God, which is prayerlessness, then we start seeking satisfaction in the world, which is worldliness. So Then we talked about how like James spoke about, praying with the wrong motives. So what can we do to ensure our prayers align with God's will?
I think the same way that you would like see if your health is still good over time. It's like you do regular doctor checkups.
Yeah.
So you do regular checkups with God, I think. Like my go-to verse in this scenario is what Moses said. Right? It's like, oh, if your presence does not go with us there, then I don't want to be there. So I think it's always doing that checkup, like, oh God, am I a bit off, or God, have I been a little bit selfish recently? Yeah.
Yeah, I think also like have there been moments as well where you realize that your like lack of prayer was rooted in pride or self-dependence. Like when you find yourself in moments when you don't pray, like what was the cause?
I think the main cause in a lack of prayer is two main causes. One is busyness. So you have scheduled your God out of your life for that day at least. And a second thing is you really think you've got it.
Said I got this.
This is just a routine day. I know what I need to do. I don't really need God at that capacity for this task. I'm just going down to Central and taking the MTR. But the reality is like, maybe that's the wrong mindset we have towards God, because God's looking for a relationship. And when you hang out with your friends, it's not always utilitarian, right? It's not always because there has to be a value, there has to be a value proposition, there needs to be something I get from you. So it's just it's really a luxury that you can pray to God at any time. It's like you can take a phone call and it's unlimited minutes. And it's up to us if we want to access that and really build a life with God and see how he's doing every single day, check in on him and he checks in on us.
Actually, to balance off of that, like we think that we got it, but I feel like another mistake I might tend to make is that I am disillusioned that I think I'm trying to be proactive,
Okay.
Like sometimes, I mean, it's good to always like check up with God, right? But I feel it comes to a point where you get like, oh, am I bothering God? Like, I think this is something I can decide on my own. I don't need to be bothering God about this. Like I feel like I should know better, so I should know better on this, so I don't have to bother God about it. So I think there's this fine line of where it's taking initiative and like knowing what kind of God desires versus you kind of just you have both hands on the steering wheel and you're doing it the way you want, I feel. And I think for me personally, I wouldn't say maybe it's pride or what was the other one? Pride or
lack or self-dependence.
Self-dependence. I think my mistake is actually when I'm in a place of comfortability. I think that is when I'm like, I think like what we mentioned, right? Like we only pray to God when we want something, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're comfortable, nothing in life is shaking us up. I think that's when I most typically might slip up and like, ooh, focus on me, enjoying life. Yeah.
I've fallen in the trap before of when things are fine, I don't really talk to God, and when things are like not so great, and I've just been constant talking to him, and if I'm not feeling great, I just talk to him. So sometimes I wonder, like, maybe the reason why I feel this way all the time is because like God wants me to talk to him more. I mean, I think also a lot of times I talk at God, not talk with God. So instead of telling God so there have been, I think recently I was just convicted, like, maybe I should create some space to ask God, what do you want from me, as opposed to tell him what I want. And I know sometimes I'm like, man, God, are you sick of the prayers I'm praying? Because I feel like I'm praying the same thing every single day. And like, but I don't think God has I don't know. Well, does God have the capability of being sick of me talking about the same thing or asking for the same thing? But yeah, I think recently it's just been like, okay, asking God, what do you want for my life? As opposed to, this is what I want.
Sometimes I think about it like this, like, God has a plan for all of us in our life. And you have also a duty to yourself to check if you're on script or if you're going off script, you know. And if you're going off script, how off script have you been going? How long has it been going on for? Because if God has a plan for us, and it's a plan to, you know, prosper us, and a plan that blesses us, then this script is the best script, basically. So if you're going off script, you don't want to derail the narrative, and you want to follow what the narrative is. But even when you know what scene you're in, just like you know what season this is, oh, this is a season to recharge, to, you know, or it's a season of revival.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, I feel like if we are really close to the source material and we know what we exactly need to be doing, when it's that scene, let's say, you can confide in God to make that scene even richer. So you're more engaged in that moment, that, okay, instead of just killing the scene, maybe now it's like an Oscar-winning scene, you know. You're really going hand in hand with God. God is the director and you're the actor, and you know exactly what lines you need to say, how you need to say it. And I don't know, life is always smoother when you check up on God, because sometimes you think like, oh, I need to be heading in this direction, I need to do this for my career, and it's like, oh, I need to, you know, get a promotion, blah blah blah. And God is maybe like, oh, you shouldn't be working right now, you know. You should be focusing on this stuff, or in work you need to be reaching out to these people and caring for these people. It's not about promotion just yet. And when you follow his markers, you always hit all the goals that you need to hit anyways.
That's true. Like, so involving you, it's involving God more in your life, and I think, like, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, as well, one thing I thought of, involving God is also like pausing the video game you're playing and watching a tutorial or a guide to show you how to play that scene. If it's like unplayable, you, instead of going through life and then like going through a game where you're crashing into every wall and you can't get through, it's like pausing the game, taking a break, and then
that actually,
going back to the board, you know.
That's actually a good example. I mean, I would watch tutorials too, I guess, for certain. I get
to
this.
figure things out, or like on Photoshop, you know, when you're stuck, you wouldn't just keep trying to mask it if you don't know how to mask.
But how to mask?
Photoshop.
That's true. Watching tutorials. So in a way, the Bible and God is our tutorial.
God is like the most amazing AI, the most amazing Google that actually wants to have a relationship with you. And he knows everything.
Exactly. And it's real. It's real. So, all right. So yes, ensure that our prayers align with God's will. Check in with Him, like, you know, talk to Him, involve Him. But also the reality is that we do live in this world.
That's true.
It's not like we can't be completely sectioned off and no sense of reality. We have to be aware of what's going on. So, but here's the thing: like, what does it mean to be a friend of the world, and why is it considered enmity with God? And how do we balance living in the world without becoming like it?
That's such a good question.
Like, you don't want to be like a fake friend, but you also need to be friends with the world, so to speak. But then also, like, if you're too friends with it, then it's enmity with God. So, but in this context, what does it mean to be a friend of the world, and why is it considered enmity with God, according to James?
I think that's such a good question, and it's such a fine line, because you need to know the world so you know how it dances, but it doesn't mean you dance with it. But the problem is, I think if you are super devout Christian and you're totally disconnected from the world, you become very unrelatable to a lot of people. So you're not effective as a Christian to reach loads of different types of ministries. Having more hobbies, having more interests, but not being led astray by them as a tool to connect to non-believers, I think is really, really powerful. But finding that balance where God does come first at the end of the day, but you can still relate to a lot of people, I think that's the sweet spot you want to be. You know?
I think we always say in youth, right? Be the thermostat, not the thermometer.
Yeah,
Right.
set the culture.
Have you heard of this?
Oh,
That like
that's
you're
so
not
smart.
you're not someone who reads the temperature, but
Yeah.
you set the temperature.
Yeah.
You're not the
That's
one
even
being
better, actually.
influenced. You're the
Yeah.
one influencing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you do have a valid point about being relatable to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Like I remember in YWAM, they don't just say, "All right, the gospel, go."
Yeah.
No, they're like they kind of like train you, like, oh, like this is how you approach people. You don't
Yeah.
go like, "Hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus?"
Lord Jesus.
Like no, you break the ice first.
Yeah.
You don't come in like on like chariots of fire.
Coming hot.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I don't know. Just talk about like, oh, look, the sun today. Oh no. I mean, yeah, you can't.
I mean, don't be weird. Don't be socially awkward. Yeah.
But like, yeah, being relatable, like, I don't know. To follow your point, I think someone who's not relating to the world can come from a very condescending point of view. I
Yeah.
feel like they're on their high horse.
Yeah.
And then like whenever they're like, oh, the things you're interested, that's petty. Like
Yeah.
I don't even shed a thought on that. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, no, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so true, actually.
Yeah. What was that phrase? People don't care how much you know unless you know how much you care. Essentially.
Oh.
So, like, if you want to relate to
Wow.
people and reach out to them, they really don't care if they know that you don't care about them. But obviously,
Yeah.
like, you don't want to also, like, say if they're living a life that's completely opposite of like your beliefs, it doesn't mean that, oh, let me embrace that belief so that I can connect with them. No, I think there's still that separation, but you need to be connecting with them, relating
Yeah.
to them, knowing that they care. So
That almost sounds more deep than the surface level of relatability of,
Yeah.
oh, we've got 3 overlapping hobbies. You
Yeah.
like football,
Yeah.
swimming, and eating as well.
let's connect.
So, actually love and care penetrates deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
People can tell that you care about
Yeah.
them without you having to be like, I'm gonna come play basketball with you.
Yeah.
When
Like-
you can't play basketball.
Like someone once told me a really tough decision that they were going to make, and I did not agree with it. It went against I guess Christian values and everything, and I was like, oh, okay, tell me more about your decision. And then so eventually, I mean, it's like they went ahead and did it anyway, but then they're like, they appreciate the fact that I wasn't like telling them like, you don't have to do this. I mean, who am I to tell them like what they can or cannot do? I can offer my advice.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like it's their life to live, and if they choose to live away from God's will, I mean, that's not my call, right? But I'm there to process, to talk, and not saying like, oh, you go, girlfriend. Like that's not the deal. So okay, so conflict with God results. Conflict with self, and then and then worldliness is a matter of the heart, and whatever basically causes me to be disobedient to God is worldliness. And so at the end of the day, the cure for conflict is more grace, but then humility is key. So in James 4:6 it says, but he gives more grace, therefore it says, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. And actually there's a difference between saving grace and more grace. Basically, grace is unmerited favor, and when we talk about more grace, is grace upon grace or greater grace from God, basically sustaining and supersized grace to enable, energize, and empower you to help you overcome conflict. Definitely a prayer that I've been saying is like, Lord, sustain me by your grace, please, because I cannot. So if we look at James chapter 4, verses 7 to 10, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord and he will exalt you. So which part of these verses challenges you the most?
Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. I think this is almost like the theme of today's podcast of being double-minded.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how do you, or how don't you be double-minded, if that makes sense? Like you don't want to be worldly
Yeah, you don't wanna be off
and
the world.
godly at the same
Yeah.
time, right?
I think, I don't know, for me is submitting to God and resisting the devil. But then like let me expound, because I feel it's easy to submit to God and easy to resist the devil. But I think personally where I struggle with is doing that 100%. Because I have a really rough spot for like occasionally needing recognition from the world.
Okay.
And so doing that makes it harder for me to submit to God 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
No,
Verse.
that's for human, to be fair. I definitely relate to that. You know?
Yeah. I would say verse 9, I think. Like, be wretched and mourn and weep, let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy be gloom. And I guess the way I see that is, I think sometimes I just want to, like, coast through things and just like, oh, all is well, all is good. But actually, sometimes I need to wrestle with the emotions that come with the situations that happen and not just be like, yeah, joy, 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 but also like, how do I mourn and weep certain things as well. So I think maybe this part would challenge me the most. But yeah, I think if we look at verse 8, right, it's draw near to God, he will draw near to you. I think like sometimes we like, yes, we want to draw near to God, but there are things that get in the way of us. And it's like we say like, oh, here we are, we're drawing near, but then also like, why is not God not there? And so I think like the rest of the verses kind of show us that what it looks like to draw near. It's like, yeah, you need to at the end of the day be humble yourselves before the Lord.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's something to think about.
Also, like an intentionality aspect to drawing near to God. Like, let's say you're waiting for a bus, just going to the bus stop for 30 seconds and expecting the bus to immediately arrive is different from checking the app and seeing that, okay, the bus is going to arrive in 15 minutes and I'm going to stand here for 15 minutes and wait for that bus to come. Sometimes we're more intentional waiting for a bus than waiting on God, right?
Yeah.
You open up 2-3 minutes in your day to do a prayer, but the prayer is like a request from God to do certain things for you, but you haven't really engaged and aligned your heart to meet God on his terms as well. So it's different. It's kind of like what your intention is behind it as well, I think is important.
Yeah. So I like how Pastor broke it down. Basically he said like, when you are humble, that's where God will give you the grace to overcome your conflict. And so without grace, there's no salvation. Without humility, we will not confess that Jesus is Lord. Basically, it's like, even though that humility is key, is needed, right? So without grace, there's no forgiveness, but without humility, we will not ask for forgiveness. Without grace, we cannot pray. Without humility, we will not pray. So I think it's important at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, we need to humble our hearts and see where God is, allow God to speak into our hearts. And see, are we being self-centered? Are we being, are we not praying? Are we seeking the world, satisfaction from the world? So I think, humility is key in order for, God to speak to us. Yeah. All right. Well, that's that for today. Thank you for a good discussion. It's, a lot to think about.
Thanks again.
And thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time on The Grind. Bye.
Bye.